Oh, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Warren, GM of BYD Auto New Zealand, and today we have on this call Mr. Marcus Walker, Fleet Manager from BYD Australia, Mr. Angus McDonald, Managing Director of Compass IoT, Native Connect, and Dave Corbett from Carbn New Zealand, one of New Zealand's fleets that are using the system currently. This webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to make use of it and share it with any colleagues who've missed out. Today, we're going to introduce you to connected car data and what this means for both fleet operators and private individuals, especially when it comes to road user charges. Angus is going to take you through his platform, which is called Native Connect, and Dave from Carbn will show you how they're using the data connected to their fleet of over 700 BYDs in New Zealand. And then we're going to finish up with a Q&A session with Marcus and the rest of the team. But before we get to Native Connect, I'm going to cover off one of the top and simple questions that we get every day: data security. Now, security is based on a simple idea, which is trust. And when it comes to connected vehicles, when it comes to your fleets, your organizations, your responsibilities in your car, nothing matters more than knowing that your data is safe. We're living through a transformation at the moment, and vehicles are no longer just machines. They are intelligent platforms. They're connected, they're responsive, and they're constantly improving. And with that transformation comes a fair question: what happens to my data? Well, I want to give you a very simple and clear answer today. At BYD, our approach is simple. We collect only what is necessary, we protect it rigorously, and we give the control back to you. I'm going to break that down. So first, what data is actually collected? Well, in reality, most of the data is generated by the BYD vehicle. It's operational. It's things like battery status, system diagnostics, vehicle performance. It's the same data that allows the vehicle to function safely, efficiently, and reliably. In many cases, the data isn't even stored on the vehicle long term. It simply enables the vehicle to do its job. But when it's personal data involved, it's always minimal and purpose-driven. For example, in New Zealand, it's a VIN number and an email address and app login details that we give to BYD Australia to enable services like the remote access or the app. Notably, we don't collect any sensitive personal data. There's no biometric data, no facial recognition, no invasive tracking. The car is not listening to you talk to your wives or your partners. It's not watching you pick your nose. That data is simply not going anywhere. So how is this data protected? I'm going to go a little bit deeper. Every BYD vehicle is built with security by design and secure systems, encrypted communications, and strict authentication protocols embedded into the vehicle from the ground up. Across our platforms, we apply encryption of key data, secure HTTPS communication, role-based access controls, multi-factor authentication, and we continuously test and contest the systems, including vulnerability scanning, all of which are aligned to global automotive cybersecurity standards, including ISO and UN regulations. And importantly for customers in New Zealand, your data, that VIN number and email address, is stored in Australia. It's not going to China. It's not going anywhere globally. It's stored in Australia on Amazon servers. Amazon servers. Thirdly, control. Right. So ultimately, this is your data. You can turn off these connected features. You can decline updates. You can delete your data. And if you're really worried about it, we can even disconnect the vehicle entirely from the network. And when it's specific data, like location services, that data is temporary and purpose-bound, and it's often deleted as soon as the function is completed. Okay, so what does that all mean? Well, it means that the idea of a connected car is a data risk. That doesn't really reflect the reality of how the systems are built. In fact, the opposite's actually true. Connected data used responsibly can help you improve your fleet efficiency, reduce operational costs, enable smarter compliance, things like digital road user charging, and ultimately helps you make better decisions without compromising privacy. So I'm going to leave you with this. Right? At BYD, we don't see as data as something to exploit. It's something to protect, respect, and use responsibly to create value for you, our customers. And when you combine that philosophy with strong regulation, local data governance, and transparent controls, the risk is actually very low, but the opportunity is huge and very real. So I'm just going to finally recap. The data is yours. It mainly stays on the car, but with Native Connect, you have the ability to have that data picked up, and Sensor Native Connect. I'm going to hand over to Angus, who's going to show you what's possible to do with that data with your fleet. So thank you, Angus. Over to you.
Thanks, Warren. And I will reiterate some of the stuff that Warren's talked about, but before I do, I'll quickly introduce myself. My name's Angus. I'm one of the directors of a company called Compass IoT and Native Connect. What we do is we work with connected cars all over the world, and we're super excited about this partnership with BYD because of the value that it brings to our shared customers. Underneath all of this, as Warren said, cars have become a digital platform. The ability to understand how those vehicles really operate and then using that operational data to improve your organization is an absolutely massive opportunity. There are pieces here that we're going to be talking about how to access your own data, how to turn it on or off, and the checks that we do to give you access to that data as well. But for the high level, let's start out with what's there. Basically, Compass IoT is the platform that allows you to access data from your vehicles. We operate in two ways. We have an API and then we have a front-end platform that anyone can log into and essentially give consent to their vehicle. Now, as Warren said, what are the pieces of data that we're collecting from vehicles for fleet managers? Everything I'm talking about today is for fleet managers. It's things like location, the speed of the vehicles, the battery level, vehicle alerts. So that's really like the health of the vehicle in terms of, if there's a powertrain error or some other error, and charging statistics. The amazing thing and the amazing change that's occurred is that in the past we had to use physical devices, so think OB2 type devices, third-party telematics devices. What's amazing is that that cost has now been mitigated because your car comes from the factory connected, and that's really a testament to the technology that BYD and others are putting out into the market. Compass IoT and Native Connect provides you the ability to view this data and to port it, so to take it into your own environments within your organization, whether you're using Power BI or any other analysis tools. We allow for that digital porting. We also do a big part of the consent checking. I'm going to quickly touch on that consent piece, just so that people understand how it all works. Underneath this, for both Australia and New Zealand, you'll know in New Zealand there's big changes on the RUC program, and the connected car is likely to play a big role in the future in terms of being able to calculate your road user charges. We'll talk about that later in today's session. In New South Wales as well, with the RUC legislated here for 2027, the same system is likely to play a major part in how RUC is calculated here in New South Wales. And so everything I'm talking about is across border. How it works is that the user, yourself, the fleet manager, will give your number plate and your consent. Within that consent form, we'll say the appropriate use for that data and what's being collected. It's very explicit. So the types of consent we get are, I want to use this data for fleet management, for example, or I want to use it to calculate RUC. They're an example of an allowed purpose. Once we get your consent and the user number plate, we will do a compatibility check. That checks that your vehicle is in fact compatible, and if it isn't, obviously we send you a notification saying that it isn't. If it is, then you pass to the consent flow part. This is where you sign a term and conditions. It tells you what your rights are. It tells you that you have the right to port that data, to use that data for those two use cases or that use case that you suggest, and what are the rules around accessing it and how to get in touch with us and all that sort of stuff. Lastly, we will do a check that you are who you say you are. We do this primarily through the NEVDES and some of the registry data sets that we get through, for example, Transport for New South Wales and Service New South Wales as an example. And once we've validated that you are who you say you are and that your contract is live, we will pass that data over to BYD in terms of the VIN number and to establish a connection to that individual vehicle or many vehicles. There's some pieces here that I think are important for everyone to understand about how we treat privacy and compliance at Compass IoT and Native Connect. one of the things that I think is important is that all of the data is got onshore processing. So just like BYD's, our data centers are in Sydney, they're actually in Piedmont. The service is opt-in only. In other words, you can't, without signing a deliberate consent form for Native Connect, have any data shared at all. You have to have opted in directly with us and signed a dedicated consent flow. So there's no data leakage or anything like that. There's no random vehicles connected to the service. If you haven't done that, there is no data stream. Finally, we have checks to ensure that your consent is truly who you say you are, and that when the vehicle is sold, deregistered, or written off, that they are disconnected instantly. There are a few other points that I should reach out. If you've got any questions about privacy or compliance, feel free to reach out to us at datacompliance@compassit.com.au. And you're welcome to exercise your rights under GDPR, which includes your rights of portability, destruction, and erasure. So again, just reach out to Data Compliance at Compass, and we'll help you with that. Let's take a look at what this all means. So here's a lovely example. Basically, vehicles seamlessly through the add vehicle function. You just put all of your details, which we then go to check. This is if you've got a live contract with us already. You can do VIN or number plate in all markets now. Your BYD vehicle, you can understand its current and latest trips, things like its odometer reading, the bearing, and indeed the actual trip itself as well. It allows you to understand and connect that vehicle without any piece of hardware at all. So once you've gone through the contract, the consent, and the flow, you're good to basically run that vehicle and then see its future trips, like so. On the background, we also calculate the RUC as applicable under law, and you can take that data and then apply that to your road user charge service in whichever jurisdiction you're working in. It's slightly different between Australia and New Zealand, but if you're part of the New South Wales trial, you'll know what I'm talking about there. That's a quick rundown on the platform. Anyone can access this service. It's currently in a beta version, allowing for anyone to explore and understand the connectivity of their own fleets. Lastly, for those that run larger companies, and might have big fleets and want to move the data from our system into their own Power BI or other analytics platform. Maybe you're doing ESG reporting. There's huge opportunities to understand your carbon impact, or even just to optimize how vehicles are used. For example, the BYD Shark is a PHEV. You might want to encourage your employees to use the electric engine rather than the ICE engine. The way you can take that data and move it into dedicated platforms is through this API service. This API service allows you as a fleet manager to basically pass data from Compass to your system. We have dedicated API support. You can stream data in real time. You can understand the vehicles that you've already got connected. And you can also initiate larger signups. So if you want to do a batch sign-up, for example, say you have a fleet of 100 new vehicles, you can provide consent in one big hit. The idea underneath this, and that includes registration search as well, the idea underneath this is to enable a seamless connectivity. A connectivity to your vehicle so that you're in control of your own data and have access to it in formats that make it useful, so that you can do ESG reporting, you can do fleet management, you can do heaps of other use cases, including things like using it to lower your insurance premiums. But most importantly, it's all within your control. That is that once you give consent, you have the ability to use your data for what you want, and Compass and BYD act as the stream to open that up to you. I'm going to pass on to Dave. Dave has been a really great beta customer, and he's been growing his business on Native Connect. And Dave, I think you're going to talk about how it can transform the future of connected car.
Thank you very much, Angus. Appreciate that. Let me just toggle my screen. Great. Hopefully that's all good. So yeah, as Angus said, my name is Dave Corbett. I'm part of the Carbon business, I'm based out of Auckland, New Zealand, although we have people throughout New Zealand. My role at Carbon is the Chief Product Officer. So that is a real fun role where we get to look at how we can continue to improve the product for our customers today and what's coming tomorrow, which is going to be a really exciting end of this calendar year of what we're going to be rolling out. Just to put a little bit of context, so we're a customer of both BYDs and Native Connect. We have, as Warren said, we have a lot of BYDs. About half of our vehicles are BYDs of our 1,400 odd vehicles that we have in New Zealand. Um, and I guess it's really sort of starting with what are we trying to do is Carbon is really about trying to change the mobility of enterprises. So think large corporates, government departments, that sort of thing. That's our primary focus. And what the equation that we're trying to make true is with fewer vehicles in those businesses, but adding in some intelligent sharing of those vehicles and having a nearby public overflow pool or capacity, then overall those enterprises, so those corporates or those government departments can get the same or better mobility. So you might say, well, how what's the point of just getting the same? Well, the answer is that you get the same or better mobility, but at much less cost. You're using those vehicles with better utilization, and one of our key focuses is therefore also to make sure that we're lowering the amount of emissions, both manufacturing emissions and some driving emissions when people are carpooling and things like that. So all of our fleet in New Zealand is EV fleets, but that's but really you can if you were into ICE vehicles as well. A lot of what I'm saying does translate across to those kind of fleets as well. So what a typical day for someone using our software would look like is shown in the right-hand side here. So this is when I was preparing these slides and finalizing them last night. That was a good picture of where all our vehicles in Auckland were. So these are the ones that we own and lease to corporates largely. And they're spread right across Auckland, so that's a good, healthy getting home to for bath time and dinner with the family. So that's good, healthy state of the economy. But look, to make this all happen, we need a lot of data, and the kind of data we need is the location of the vehicle, the speed and direction of the vehicle, what its odometer is, the state of charge, because we use electric vehicles, and inevitably to help people remotely with lock and unlock, depending on what their scenario might be, if they need a bit of help. Um, and all of those things are really, traditionally were provided by adding in what are called aftermarket devices into the vehicles. So all of our vehicles do have aftermarket devices, so hardware that we've installed. Um, but what we've been exploring and using with Native Connect is actually this alternative, really. So our past is really all about what can we do with what's called the IoT or Internet of Things device that we've added to the vehicle. Where we're at the moment, so this blue bit is that we have for all of the vehicles that can be connected with Native Connect, and BYD is a great example. We're running at the moment both the IoT device and the Native Connect connection, and that's so that we've done a pretty thorough trial that the data is the same and consistent and all that kind of good stuff that you'd expect. So before we sort of jumped in, boots and all. The kind of connection we're getting at the moment is about across all makes and models about 25%. So obviously 100% of BYDs, but across all makes and models. But we think that the future is that smart cars will be connected. So the future probably will be that we can get connected directly to the vehicles and get all those data points that we need to run our business and deliver the lower cost, lower emission outcomes for our enterprise clients. So for us, this isn't really about us getting new data elements, but it's about getting them with less friction. So the great things that other people on this call will realize immediately is that, if you don't have to install a device in a vehicle, then you've saved the cost of that device. But you've also set up the coordination time and the setup time, and often those are precious days and weeks when people really want the new cars into their fleet. Um, but in some cases, the data is more complete, which is great. And it's in particular, it's really important to get the real accurate odometer reading, especially for those ruck use cases. And also for the state of charge, it just really helps you manage the user experience, and nudge drivers to go and top up at public charging when it's rather than returning the vehicle on next to no charge, or at least if we can see that that's the case, we can redirect bookings so that people don't have that poor experience of getting into a car and not having a charge. Of course, with these days, batteries have typically 400 kilometers and more, so it's much less of an issue than people think it is. But still, we like to avoid people getting into a car and then not being able to get to where they want to right away. So that's kind of where we're at the moment and the future. It's probably important to focus on not just allowing us to deliver the features we have today, but sort of what this really unlocks for us in the future. So rucks have been mentioned, and it's super topical in New Zealand at the moment. We hear from our customers that when we can move people easily to ruck, being done with the assistance of smart car data, that's going to open things up for delivery and rental car companies to consider whether they want to flip their business model and attribute the ruck cost for each journey. So we've heard that asked for as a request. I guess whether that eventuates in the consumer's eyes will depend on what it always depends on, which is the dynamic of the market. But in any event, it's great to have that information in real time. We're really excited about where charging is going in New Zealand. Part of our offerings as Carbn is we provide a service to collate charging companies so that you can access multiple charging points with a single card. And so that's just opens it up and makes it easier for the enterprises to get around. But with actually this enhanced data and knowing where the cars are, we see a future where, the charging deals can start to chase the customers at the right time. So when you're going down through the Bombay Hills in Auckland, that it might prompt you to come in and have a little snack for yourself and a little snack for your battery at the same time, and at a good price. So that's not here yet, but we can see that this sort of opens up those doors, which will be a better user experience. One thing that is a little bit selfish to us, but that we're really happy about how Native Connect and I guess smart car connectivity more generally really helps a Kiwi business like us grow globally. When you're in the connected car game, and you're doing an Internet of Things installation in a car, every new jurisdiction you go to requires you to, if you're putting hardware in, to reason through what are your installers going to be, where are they going to be, how do you train them, connections to the local cell phone provider, et cetera, et cetera. So it just sort of all friction for growth. And certainly, once we have more and more cars connected, it's going to help us grow globally quicker, to be able to just tap in directly to those cars that are already connected globally. And Native Connect's already got a really impressive global footprint. And then, of course, we don't know what we don't know yet, right? Innovation has a way of jumping up and just sort of being obvious when you see it. But, clearly knowing where the cars are and where they're going and who they're being driven by and their driving behavior, it opens up things like, journey specific insurance products. Do you want to insure this particular journey? Also, accident management services is something that we're rolling into our product in the next few months. But those services can be enhanced, right? If we can start to share information about where you are and the nature of the deceleration event that might have caused a crash, might really help get you the right help at the right time. So that's those are the unknown unknowns, and there'll be other ones to come. But we're really excited about what we've seen so far, and we're really excited about what it's going to hold for the future, so we can continue to deliver more value for our customers. So hopefully, pardon me, that's put a little bit more meat on the bones of kind of how that we're using this information in practice. I think I'm handing back to Warren at this point. Thank
Yeah,
you.
great. Hey, thanks, Dave, and thanks, Angus. Well, guys, that's given you a sort of a brief overview of Native Connect and our connected car data. I've got a bunch of questions here, and a lot of them have already been covered off, but we'll go through some of them. I think the key takeouts from my point of view, having been involved in fleet for a long time, is that cars are becoming more connected. There is going to be no need to install third-party telematics hardware because a car can already do it. At the moment, this is a trial, and the trial's running pretty successfully. We've got about 1,000 cars connected here in New Zealand, and there is no cost to the trial. If you're a New Zealand fleet and you have BYDs in your fleet and you want to be involved in the trial, you can feel free to reach out to your New Zealand BYD fleet manager. We'd be happy to add you. Costs going forward is something that we get asked quite often. Any costs going forward are likely to be very minimal compared to the savings that you're getting on telematics hardware rental costs. So, I'm just going to run through a selection of the questions. As I said, a lot of the questions around data security have already been answered, but I'll just click some of these questions here. This one's for Angus, I think. Will the data be expanded into more fields going forward?
Yeah, there's a massive program of work to extend it to about 40 different variables. And that includes like bespoke variables like the odometer from the electric engine versus the ICE engine on PHEVs, for example. And all of that's about essentially expanding what we can do with it. So, what you as a fleet manager and an operator of these vehicles can use that data for, whether that's on the reporting side, whether that's on the risk and insurance and, helping drivers behave better side. There's heaps of opportunities within that. There's a program of work. I won't give any tentative dates yet, but it's been going on for quite a number of months. And so
we're getting close to them, aren't we? Yeah. That's good. Okay, another question. This one again, probably for you, Angus. What approvals are needed from the driver or the owner or others in the supply chain? So who has to give approval?
Yeah, okay. So it's quite it's an important thing to understand the flow and the steps in that architecture diagram that I talked about. Kind of went through it. We do checks against the owner of the vehicle. For you as a fleet manager, you've got to be wary and aware that it's very similar to your own telematics in terms of if you were putting a dongle in your vehicle. If you need to, from a union perspective or other legal perspectives for your workplace, make sure you get the consent of the driver. You are responsible within your contract to be able to do that. From Compass's point of view, the rights are to the owner, and they actually own the data coming from the vehicle as well. And Compass IoT and Native Connect, as well as BYD, act as data processors in the pathway to get you access to your own data from the vehicle that you own, is how the legal structure works underneath that.
Right. Another question probably for you, Angus. Can you access historical data even if after you have sold the vehicle?
No. So the data is forward-looking. When you establish a connection to a vehicle, like the first piece of that puzzle is that the data does not allow us the ability to look back. It's because it's an opt-in service where a piece of script is basically deployed to the vehicle. It only gives data from that point forwards. If the vehicle is sold, for example, we get a notification through the Nev desk, and that will actually kick it off the service. We'll notify you in that case. There is a small period of time where you can, usually 30 days, where you can access your previous data, but after that, it has to be destroyed.
Great. Marcus, is the connected car service active anytime, or does it require an OTA or a visit to a dealership workshop?
No, so it's live as of since we have been a company really here in New Zealand and Australia. So the connected car service part is, I guess, an extension of the BYD app available, but this just puts it in a far better system that Angus and his team has put together. So yeah, jump on now, have a chat to the team at Native Connect, and it's ready to go.
Right. Can you track the kilowatts of charging input to guide reimbursement of charging to staff?
This is coming in the second release, from the earlier question about adding more data variants. So it's coming down the line to understand how much charge is going into the vehicles. There's a few ways to cut and dice it, because we also know the size of the batteries based on the make model and what percentage it's increasing. But I suppose the short answer to the question is it's a future program of work.
Great.
If that was an Australian question, there is an ATO calculation that can be worked purely off the odometer. That's being put out by the ATO. So yes, the pure kilowatts would be amazing, but yeah, ATO does have a calculation that's out there for you.
Great. This is some generic BYD questions. We've got a lot of questions, Marcus, on OTAs. When's the next OTAs for Atto 3, C-Line 7, those sorts of things? Do you want to have a little message about OTAs? I think this is from a lot of our private customers.
Yeah. So OTAs, we normally there's roughly twice a year. We put out an OTA. Often we want to be able to do a significant upgrade there for the vehicle. There's not too much more to really be said about that. It's normally about twice a year. If there's a significant piece of upgrade to come, then they might hold off a little bit until it's ready. But yeah, we always make sure and do our best to make sure that those OTAs are correct and don't cause any issues. So we do hold back a little bit, get them tested first, and then push them out.
Now, this one might be aimed at Dave, or I can answer it as well. Will leasing prices reduce and residual prices increase? Well, you're involved in the leasing industry, Dave. What do you think?
Not as a result of this data being there, but I think just generally, because you and I are both focused on EVs quite a lot, Warren, and I think that people's anxiety about batteries in particular are reducing as the technology is getting so much stronger. But you probably can do the better answer on that. But
yeah, well, BYD is a technology company, and our cars are improving. I think one of the big things we've got happening is next year we're going to have vehicle-to-grid enabled vehicles, or vehicle-to-home. So your car is no longer a car. Your car will also now be essentially like a Tesla Powerwall. So what does that do to a residual value on one of our cars versus a traditional ICE car? If anybody in New Zealand, you only have to go on Trade Me, or our equivalent of car sales or eBay, and have a look at the used prices of Atto 3s at the moment. There are cars on there that private buyers are trying to sell for $45,000 that are 4 years old, and yet we've got the new ones on sale at $49,990. I would say the resale value on BYD has never been higher. It's probably too high at this stage, but that will absolutely have an effect on lease pricing. And I think you're going to find lease pricing on EVs and PHEVs will decrease over the next 12 months, and you'll see it increase as those less desirable dirty diesels come through. Right, we've got some other questions here. Angus, does this mean that my car can be tracked by LTSA or LTNZ?
No, not unless you've signed up through the dedicated. It's an opt-in process, so you basically have to go through Native Connect, sign the terms and conditions, and then opt in. The main use case for that would be if you wanted to do some sort of fleet management or pay road user charges that way, but it doesn't. Your car is not inherently tracked. No.
Okay, great. I'm only going to go through a couple more because I know we're coming close to time. What can the Australian governments do to better support connected vehicle technology adoption. Is there anything our governments can do to help speed up the process?
So I hope you don't mind if I answer that one, Marcus.
Yeah, go ahead.
Across both the straits. I think there is actually a lot to be learned from what New Zealand and particularly what NZTA has done in this space and the Ministry of Transport. They have facilitated an ecosystem because of their RUC policies and the fact that they have essentially committed to changing their RUC policies and open-minded to new technology. Even if you aren't using connected car in RUC, there are certainly ways of encouraging this sort of innovation from a policy lens. A lot of that's being done at the state level currently rather than the federal level. I'm not aware of any specific connected car policy at the federal level to support innovation. So my tip would be look to our New Zealand colleagues on that front.
I'm just going to move on to another 2 or 3 questions, and then we'll call it quits. Marcus, are there any plans for an EV people mover or different versions of the Shark, i.e. single cab?
Yeah, we're always looking at new versions of Shark. Obviously, against the legacy brands out there, there's quite a few options. All I can say there is it's certainly on our wish list. We do talk to the factory constantly about our wish list, especially on Shark. Massive opportunity in both New Zealand and Australia. Single cab, it's not a huge market in both markets. We understand there is a need for that vehicle, but no, certainly we keep it high on the wish list. People mover, watch this space. There is a vehicle in the works. Obviously, we're not here to talk about BYD, but sorry, we are here to talk about BYD, not about Denza. Denza, there is a people mover, so as you can imagine, that will flow down the brands. So, yep.
Right. Proceeding last question, again for Marcus. What are your plans for in-house charging infrastructure?
So a lot of you may have already seen us talking about flash charging or megawatt charging. So the first vehicle across all our brands to hit New Zealand and Australia will be the Z9 GT. That's a Denza product. That will be the first model to have flash charging or megawatt charging. Coming with that will be flash charging installations across New Zealand and Australia to support that. As you've seen across our brands and our models, that technology flows downwards, which is fantastic. So in the future, you will see, and overseas, you've probably already seen it in China, is some of the BYD products with flash charging. So we need to be able to support that. And the easiest way for us to support that is to lead the charge. Excuse the pun.
Very good. I think that's pretty much it. There's one last question here just on the future of battery technology. At the moment, we have Blade Battery 1 installed on most of our cars. Blade Battery 2 is in some of the newer models like the C-Line 8 and the CLO 6 Touring Wagon that's just been launched in New Zealand or arrived in New Zealand this week. If you follow BYD technology, we have plans for sodium-based batteries in the next few years, and also solid-state batteries, which will head into some of our super or hypercars from 2027 onwards. So BYD is a technology and an engineering company first and foremost. I can tell you battery technology is absolutely at the forefront of what we're trying to achieve. And evidently what you're going to see is either smaller batteries giving you bigger payloads. So, those commercial vehicles and vans and things like that, you can have longer range with more payload and faster charging times. But at the moment, as Marcus just mentioned, the flash charging, being able to charge a car in 4 or 5 minutes completely changes the way that EVs are going to be used in the future. That's about it, guys. We've run out of time today. I do encourage you, if you've got any more questions, you can reach out to any of us via LinkedIn or me at wwilmot@bydauto.co.nz. Thank you very much for tuning in. And gentlemen, thank you for your time in hosting and presenting. And stay safe out there. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Take care.